What is up, guys? What's up? Thanks for joining me here on my channel. Sorry for the delay. Some technical difficulties. I think they've been solved now. We are looking at, once again, the house of Keiko Mecheri or Mecheri. Not sure how to pronounce her last name. I apologize if I'm mincing that. Mecheri, maybe. Anyways, Keiko, I can pronounce pretty well. That's Japanese, obviously. Fairly common first name or surname in Japanese. Can you see this bottle, guys? That's just a work of art. This is the old bottle, as far as I believe. They've redone the bottles in a more modern style. I think maybe even they're bigger, or they offer bigger bottles. This, of course, is a 50 mils, 1.69 fluid ounces. But I can tell you guys that the cap on this is very, very dense. This is very, very heavy for a cap this size. If you were to drop this off the Empire State Building, it would really, really hurt someone seriously. So the nameplate is metal. It's sort of this golden, inscribed, pressed, stamped, whatever, kind of like bronze or gold. I'm not saying it's real, either of those. Otherwise, very simplistic. I did want to show you the box this came in, because this is absolute like box porn. This is one of the most beautiful boxes in fragrance that I've ever seen, like bar none. It's so high quality. You can just, and I've let it get scuffed up, unfortunately, a little bit, but this is absolutely just like a ridiculous level of quality for it to put a actual, bottle of perfume in, and it sits in there like this. I could cover it and closes like that. Absolutely stunning presentation, in my opinion. But before I get into the notes, I want to say something that Keiko Mecheri. Hi, John. Awesome. Wow, we got a famous nose here, guys. John, is it Bible or Bible? I think it's Bible. Check John's website out, guys, online. Fantastic perfumer, artisanal, niche, indie fragrances. You say you're a patchouli guy. Oh, not really, John. I like patchouli a lot, but if you've watched my channel for a while, I'm really mainly all about tobacco. I know that's very limiting, but I also do like patchouli a lot. I'm also really, really enjoying vetiver these days. So I'm kind of just getting spread out a bit, but my main go-to is tobacco. I really do enjoy vetiver. I do like patchouli. I really like good ouds, but I don't really like super skanky ouds. So for me, I tend to veer more towards the cleaner, more clinical. You could almost say synthetic ouds, perhaps, but I like the cleaner stuff. Like Atkinson's, they do some really, really wonderfully clean type ouds that I think are more Western friendly. But I like anything that just kind of ignites my imagination and that evokes, I think, something like a strong mood or a strong image, at least sort of abstractly. I don't mean a literal place like Paris. That's fine. I hear some people say, "Oh, this fragrance reminds me of Paris." What they're really saying is that it reminds them of someone they smelled when they were in Paris. Unless they're being super uber literal, like, "Oh, this reminds me of the springtime in Japan because I smell the pink." Can't even think right now. You know what I'm talking about? Those trees that they fall. I want to say cranberry. That's not it. I'm not sure if I am, but thank you so much for the kind words, John. But getting into this house for a minute, guys, if you don't know much about Keiko, she's a very fascinating nose in the perfume world. Semi self-taught. I think she also went to a really good school, if memory serves correctly, of perfumery. And she has her own totally unique, sort of, I would describe it as a Japanese woman's interpretation while living in America, but heavily influenced from France. I know that sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, but It's all of those three things, and even more so, that's given her a very distinct sensibility in the perfume world. Yeah, just go to Keiko Mecheri. I'll type it here if you can't already see it in the title. I'm not sure. Let me type that here. Keiko, and then her last name. And one thing that's really cool, guys, about, I'm not trying to just get you dead set on her website or whatever, but I do think it's definitely worth checking out. I'm not like the hugest fanboy or anything. I just want to make that clear, but you definitely should go over. I think she's had maybe like 50 different scents that she's created. And guys, if you know anything about perfumery, that's just, I mean, she may even have more than that, but that's a truckload. That is an absolute truckload of dossiers, workups. You've got to go through so many trials. John, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, even if you're a relaxed, semi-lazy indie perfumer, you're still going to go through several tries before you decide, this is what I want, this is going to sell, this is what I'm going to the market with. Houses like Firmenich and the big dogs, and even Avon, they're going to go through so many workups. They're going to go through, maybe, I've heard of cases, honestly, literally, you can believe this or not, where one nose said they'd gone through literally over, like, at least in the lab, I'm not talking about necessarily having roundtable meetings, but in the lab, the master nose had gone through over 600 iterations and different looks and different tries to finally decide on just 3 that he would then present to the lead main guys that work for those super uber duper huge companies to actually decide what they're going to market with. So anyhow, so, yeah, it really is, John. You can go through, I mean, you might go through 100 tries just to get 2 different scents brought to market, at least. And so for her to actually feel comfortable to bring roughly 50, we'll say, maybe 60 to market, is just mind blown. But anyways, let's go on to the review. What I will also say about her house is that she has a very strong DNA, like a lot of houses do, right? You smell something from Chanel, you usually instantly get that Chanel something. It may not always be clear what it is. You smell an Armani creation, especially the Privé line or whatever, or even their lower entry-level stuff. You may often get some kind of Armani essence. Paco Rabanne is that way. They're really mostly all that way. Now, I'm not saying there's not a lot of cross chatter. There is, and some of it gets diluted and too synthetic. Those get harder to sometimes peg what house it's coming from. But once you move into their upper tier stuff, it gets a bit easier in most cases. Yeah, but what I want to say about the Keiko Mecheri, or Mecheri, however you say her last name, I think it's Persian or Lebanese, something like that. They have that strong DNA scent. And what I will say about that is they have this sparkly, little lightly ethereal, woody. They're very cozy. There's a coziness to her scents. She kind of likes something that, I'm not saying it's menthol, but it gives off a light menthol vibe. I don't know how she's achieving that. I wouldn't pretend to have the knowledge. John might be way better suited than I would to shed light on that. But a lot of her scents tend to have this little creamy, velvety, woodsy, slightly herbal. There may or may not be some tobacco. There's usually always musk in most of her scents. She may or may not put things like patchouli, something green, verdant. But there's this DNA componentry to her house that's really, really very accounted for in most of her scents. It's just very, very... Creed is that way, guys. Creed has a lot of... There's something in a House of Amouage may be even a better analogy, yeah. amouage has a very, very specific chemical DNA that just spells amouage, right? Yeah, in the old days, Annick Goutol of Paris, France was that way. So this is a little small mock-up here of a sample of Vetiver eau de toilette from the older. This is the older version of Annick Goutol. Her daughter now runs the show, as far as because Annick passed away, and her daughter now is running the show there in Paris. So excited for that and for her daughter to keep the dream alive. Annick, by the way, guys, passed way too young. What an awesome lady! What an awesome perfumer. Yeah, it's just sad, but okay. But let's get into it. Let's get into the notes. By the way, if you're wondering, Vetiver Velours or Vetiver Velours means simply velvet vetiver. That's all it means. So you can think, yeah, don't think corduroy, think velvet. So let's get into the notes. Your notes are going to be, by the way, this dropped back in 2012. Not that it really matters, but I like to always kick that out there. You're going to get Javanese vetiver, blonde tobacco, toffee notes, precious woods, benzoin tears. John, as a perfumer and a nose, I don't know what tears means. I know what benzoin is, certainly, but come on, benzoin tears. I think that's getting a little too artsy fartsy, honestly, but whatever. And then it goes on to say, it is how the artist envisions masculine elegance by altering it. Vetiver in the medium of perfumery is always purely conceptual. What comes to one's mind is walking across a dark, humid forest. To unravel the complexity and elegance of its extravagant entanglements, Keiko Mecheri refined the medium of its earthy origin with scent of dryness and fragrant dust, and stops the flight of time. What a poetic blurb. I don't know how much of that is true, but I'm going to honor it because I think Keiko is a very honorable woman and a very interesting, intriguing nose in the world of perfumery. Not necessarily to everyone's taste, certainly, but then honestly, who is, right? We all have different likes and dislikes and whatnot. So at Fragrantica, at any rate, they have Java vetiver oil listed, followed by tobacco. Base notes gives blonde tobacco, just to be clear of that distinction. Toffee or toffee-like accords. Woody notes, that's kind of whatever you could imagine. That could be so many different types of ingredients conjuring up sort of that woody type of smell and base. Benzoin. And that's about it. Now, if we head over to base notes, are there? Yeah, they're a little different. They start with citrus notes in the top, Javanese vetiver, and then in the heart we get green notes, but they're not. Yeah, I don't know what the green notes are. Blonde tobacco, toffee, and then in the base, precious woods, benzoin tears, and musk. I don't think. Yeah, see, musk was absent on the Fragrantica website. So curious. Now, as it were, if you go to base notes, they're split 50-50 down the middle. You've got two positive and two neutral. Now, those, keep in mind, those are not two negative reviews. They're just two neutral reviews. That's even the bad side's not that bad. It's just neutral. What I will tell you before we get into, I want to read you guys some of the different blurbs from some of the online reviewers, and I'll certainly give credit where credit's due. I'm not trying to steal anyone's thunder. Into the dry down, I definitely get the tobacco, and I love that because, as I said earlier, that's my number one favorite aroma chemical and or essence, if you will. I mean, tobacco is real, but I mean, it can also kind of be an accord. I really like that. I like the fact that it's blending with the Javanese vetiver. Again, there's something curiously, slightly, and very lightly menthol. I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe there's a little mint oil deep down the base. It's very, very mild. It's very, very soft, but it's there nonetheless. There is the citrus is way more prominent in the opening. You do get this strange, lightly dank, but yet at the same time dusty, like going into some dark woods effect. I don't know. It's a curious creation. There's something green in here. It reminds me a little bit of papaya, but not as fruity. Much harder to peg. And now I've gone ahead and sprayed on here, but if you want to see how the mister works, guys, I'll spray on this hand because this one's got the more of the dry down. Pretty good mister. Nothing to write home about. Does the job. It's a nice little mister. Yeah, see that right away in the opening, that citrus note, those green notes. In fact, you know what this green note reminds me of? It reminds me a little bit of that so-called grape Coca-Cola stuff that was in the CK Shock. If any of you own or have smelled Calvin Klein Shock, which I absolutely adore, I think it's such an under the radar, underrated, and undersold. It shouldn't be cheap at all. It should be selling for like $200 a bottle or $150 a bottle if they could rename it into some kind of couture line. I honestly think the aroma is that good, but this is not the time for that debate. But this has some of that like Jolly Rancher green vibe in it. It's not as sweet. It's not quite as synthetic, but it's there nonetheless. I will, however, say that fades rather quickly. Maybe not entirely, but it goes into the base and kind of semi-disappears. The musk comes out in the mid and then into the deep, deep dry down. The benzoin certainly is doing its thing along with the precious woods. Well, you're really not going to get specific cedar. You're not going to get pine. You're not going to get agar, certainly. It's just a general sense of a being in the woods type vibe. The Javanese vetiver is definitely here, guys, but keep in mind it's somewhat subdued because of the both the precious woods, especially the tobacco, the musk, the benzoin, the green notes. Those are all kind of intermingling, and so it's lessening the prominence of the vetiver. I assure you, vetiver is here. There's a lot of blurbs on here that there's no vetiver. Where's the vetiver? It's absolutely here. In fact, I will have you know that there's some strange, subtle similarities between the vetiver that's in here and Ferrari's vetiver essence. I'm not at all saying it's not necessarily in the same price class, but there is some essence of that vetiver that is strangely reminiscent of Ferrari's vetiver essence. I think it's fine. I love Ferrari's vetiver essence. I think it's a fantastic fragrance, period, but especially for the fact that it's a cheapie. But let's get into some blurbs and stuff. Let me go back to my live stream and see if are there any questions or pointers out here, guys, before I move on. No! Oh my God, Rich! I had no idea Mona D'Orio had passed, or if I did, I forgot. Oh my God, I feel like an ignoramus. That's horrible. Actually, let me wait. No. I found that out last year. That's right. I found that out towards the latter half of last year. And I had no idea. I was like mind blown. I thought, well, what do you mean she's that? Yeah, it's just tragic, man. John enlightens us that the word tears is not far off. Resins are collected from slashes in the trees. Wow, that's very poetic. Wow. So the resins that come out look like tears. So sad, man. Wow, that's wicked cool. Well, now I feel a little bit like an idiot, but thank you for sharing that, John. I guess my mind is so literal that I'm always doing the comparo to actual salted tears, and so I'm thinking like, okay, what is this about? But that makes total sense. And I've read something similar about the oud, by the way. But yeah, that's very poetic and kind of sad. Yeah, let's just read some blurbs and then we'll call it a night. So Sniffers says at base notes, you can just go to their website, look up Keiko Mecheri's Vetiver Velours, or Vetiver Velours, if you want to talk like the French. Sniffer says, 2 things about Keiko Mecheri fragrances to me. One is that, especially in the bespoke collection, there's a common accord, kind of musky wood, I believe, that I detect lurking in almost every KM fragrance that I've tried. A sort of house accord. That's exactly what I said, and I could not agree more. The other is that I find pretty much all of the KM fragrances to have a relaxing, joyful feel that to me almost borders on being spiritual, meditative. Wearing KM fragrances just makes me feel good. As far as this fragrance itself, if you're looking for a vetiver dominant fragrance, this isn't it. What I do get of the vetiver in this is of a background player that just adds a little flavor of earthiness, woodiness, borderline oriental feel, green, spicy wood sitting on a cloud of sweetened musk. Not bad, but not vetiver. For sure, a perfect office scent, very pleasant and inoffensive, possibly FBW if a deal can be found. Spicy, woody musk. Okay, that's a really good take on it, sniffers. I'm not going to totally disagree. I have a little bit of a slightly different take, but I largely agree with what Sniffer said. Now, here's a neutral rating. I want to keep it legit here, not just give a one-sided view. Karen out of the UK says, "What does velours mean?" Without no Karen, it means velvet in French. Because the vetiver here has gone missing and has been replaced by powdery, spicy musk. It's a lovely smell, but for a woman, IMO. But for the smell, this would be a thumbs down. 1, for having no vetiver aroma, and 2, for the stupid price being asked. I will say, guys, this is not a cheapie at all. I was lucky to find a deal, and it was still fairly expensive, but it was a significant deal. It was a good bit less asked than the normal MSRP, which is very steep. But whatever, teach their own. If you got the coin and you want to buy really cool, I would suggest start with samples and decants if you can, but before you pull the trigger. These do cost pretty much in the Armani Privé level, let's say. I think that's fair to say. And some of them may go slightly north towards the Creed type levels. Okay, Buzzle Puff out of the US, neutral also, and they will end on one positive. Says Vetiver Velours is a cool green, indecisive musk-centered fragrance. It is soft, pleasant to smell, and it's built around the generally fuzzy musk warmth that is the heart of many Keiko Mecheri's bespoke collection. It smells nice, but it doesn't have that bold vetiver statement that so many other great vetiver scents have. What does it stand for? It's not a green or verdant. It's not rooty, damp earth or wood scent. Vetiver Velours is pleasant, almost powdery musk with a slight green woods tone. This fragrance certainly is not worth the premium price put on by the bespoke collection. I'm left wondering why they think it's so special. And finally, I'll end with Mimi Gardenia. What a cool name. Don't know if that's real or not, but a wicked cool name here out of the US. She gives a thumbs up and writes, all in all, if you're looking for a good, hard, straight-up vetiver, this is not for you. The vetiver is weak here. For me, the scent begins like Canyon Dreams, spicy, fougere, and aromatic. It has some bite to begin with, and then it goes all soft. The spice recedes, and in comes the sweet. There must be vanilla. So then I'm getting a Shalimar type quality. You know, the citrus versus the vanilla versus labdanum. The vetiver is a small player in this composition. Again, like agar wood on me. Shalimar, people, that is what I'm getting, or perhaps Le Labo, labdanum 18. So yeah, let's end on a couple of notes. Oh, before I go on, read some comments. Right. Yeah, John wrote, no, it's a case where the technique is poetic in itself. This is a great review, by the way. Thank you. Oh, very cool. Very kind, John. Senator Fragrances, I think this brand made musk nobile. I love it. Or nobilis. Stephen, as a vetiver, John writes, as a vetiver smell, where would you place this, trusting your impressions? Is it something that really showcases vetiver? Or is it vetiver one of the players? No, John, to be quite blunt, this is definitely not a vetiver showcase type front and center, where it's just all about it. You know, I've got guys, to be clear. I've got some serious players here in the house for Vetiver. I've got right here Givenchy's Vetiver. Doesn't get any more hardcore puristic or French than that. I've got another hardcore Parisian Lubin, or Lubin, if you don't want to pronounce it the French way. This is literally called Le Vetiver de Lubin. Hardcore. I've got my trusted Elisab, the most profitable house, by the way, out of Paris. Shh, don't tell anyone I said that, but it is. I've got insider friends. Number 6, Vetiver. And I have also Guerlain Vetiver Eau de Toilette. So I've got some heavy hitter classics here, guys, for sure. For shizzle, my nizzle. I think I know what classic Vetiver smell like, but you know, my one, you know, while I really like and enjoy these old-fashioned, slightly classics, they're very puristic, and what I mean by that is they're mostly about sort of one accord, or at the outer limit too. But Vetiver is very much at the heart, front and center of the ones that I just showed you. Now, with the exception to Le Vetiver de Lubin and perhaps Elisab's Vetiver number 6. These have a lot more going on as well. They're not just about Vetiver, but Vetiver is still vital and very, very central to their aroma makeup, if you will. The architecture of those scents is still very, very heavily configured and built around Vetiver. Even the Vetiver, for example, especially in Le Lubin, Le Vetiver is not necessarily the only rock star in the band. There's a lot more going on in there. There's I believe some tobacco and musk and several other hardcore ingredients that give it a real nice Miller Harris, boozy, woody, leafy kind of fall impressions. Perfect for fall and winter type vibe, and maybe a little, almost like a little brandy accord. But when you get into, yeah, and again, I think with Keiko, guys, you have to realize she's very artistic, very poetic. If she writes something like Vetiver Velvet, which is what this means, Vetiver Velours is velvet, Vetiver Velvet, or Velvet Vetiver. In her own mind, probably, and I would never presume to speak for Keiko, but just as a lover of perfume, if I were to try to interpret her creations based on her house and her aesthetic, I think maybe in her mind it plays a bigger role. Maybe it's more central than we would actually agree to, if that makes sense. But I think that at least for most of our Western sensibility taste, I don't think that this is necessarily at all about Vetiver. It's in here. There's no doubt about that. But it plays a decently strong role, but not more than that. I would say, you know, the tobacco is fairly prominent. The musk is very prominent, but it's a light powdery musk. Those woods and benzoin tears and that green thing and a little bit of the citrus, those are all key components of this scent. And so what I like about it is that it's intriguing. It's a very unique, it's hard to kind of pin down what it is that I like about it. It's not the greatest thing I've ever smelled in the world by a country mile, but there's something mysterious and intriguing about it that keeps me just coming back going, You know, it kind of morphs. You get that little like spicy menthol type thing. There's the blonde tobacco. There's the musk. There is the Javanese vetiver, which is probably of an excellent grade, but because it's so subdued, vetiver lovers aren't getting their their vetiver jollies off, if you will. So I understand that. I understand the detractors. Okay, but anyways, enough for all that. It's woodsy. It's a little bit dark. It's a little bit dusty. It's a little bit powdery. It's a little bit sweet. I wouldn't say there's vanilla in here. I really refuse to believe there's vanilla in here. I do not believe that for a second, but there's something in here that could maybe, I could see giving off a light impression of caramel vanilla, but I'm talking about uber minuscule, like it's kind of there and it kind of isn't type vibe, right? But I wouldn't really say that pure vanilla is in here at all. I don't think it is. Yeah, to John's point, I think she's using the vetiver as a major catalyst, and so I think it's doing a lot more than we're asking of it, or that we're accustomed to vetiver actually doing. I think this is kind of a genius fragrance to a point, but it's also mild. It's modest. It's very intimate. It's not a projection beast. I mean, it's very strong on skin, guys. Make no mistake about it. If you spray it on skin a couple times, it's going to last a good 8 hours, just period. Maybe more than that, but it's not going to project strongly. It's not going to do that. It will project fairly strongly if you go heavy in the first 2 to maybe 3 hours. After that, it's going to die down fairly rapidly, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's an interesting scent. I'm not saying it's a home run. I'm not saying I'm in love with it, but I think it's really, really, really well constructed towards fall and winter. It's definitely unisex. I mean, and she makes no bones about that. That's clear from her website. I don't know. It's kind of intriguing. It's not the greatest thing I've ever smelled. It's good to very good. But there's qualities about it that are kind of ethereal and very, very hard to pinpoint. That's why I find it so intriguing. That's going to do it. That's my review. I'm sorry if I've left anybody hanging out there. I'd like to wrap this up with a bow, but I can't at this time give more of what I'm feeling about the fragrance, except to say maybe perhaps it's a warm, intimate, slightly mysterious, cozy type of scent. Again, you are going to get musk and woods, some vetiver. It's not the rock star here. A little bit of that strange, slightly minty, slightly menthol, which I have found in other fragrances from the house of Keiko. So whatever that is, she appears to like that type of construction. That's going to do it, guys. I want to really, really extend my sincerest gratitude towards John. Guys, if you don't know who John is, please check out his website. Google John Biebel right now. That's your homework. Check out his website and buy something from him. He makes great perfume. Great, great, great perfume. And I think you've been featured in a couple of write-ups, if I'm not mistaken. But at any rate, guys, it's been a pleasure. Wishing you all a very happy New Year. Spray often. Spray well. Live life on your terms. And if you're buying, try to buy on discount. Just kidding. If you can. If your wallet's important to you, find a discount. If not, oh well, pull the trigger. Always start with the decant or sample if you can. And if you can't, buy it anyway. Peace out, guys. Love you.